Hello, my name is Yesenia Ponce, and welcome to my Cultural Criticism project. This presentation was put together for my CNJ 393 course, Experiencing Spanish Pop Culture. I will be covering food, identity, and how they relate to Spain. Spain is known for many things like art, architecture, flamenco, football, bullfighting, and their cuisine, among many other things. I wanted to focus on how food is tied into Spanish identity. The first text I chose is called Food and Identity, Food Studies, Cultural and Personal Identity, which is pretty self-explanatory. It covers how food, culture, and identity are tied together. My second piece is called The Introduction of Trans-Hispanic Food Cultural Studies, defining the subfield. This text covers what food cultural studies is about and the importance of studying Hispanic, or their preferred word, trans-Hispanic food culture. My last two pieces cover the traditions and practices around food, specifically how the food is consumed. They are called Is It a Pleasure to Eat Together? Theoretical Reflections on Conviviality in the Mediterranean Diet, and Eating Out in Spain, Motivations, Sociability, and Consumer Context. When traveling, one of the things that's recommended is food, what foods to try and where. You're also told about little things to be prepared for, like here in Spain people eat later in the day, or that waiters aren't checking in too consistently. While things like that are new and possibly unfamiliar to foreigners, to the people of said country, it's ingrained in their day-to-day life. If you're fortunate enough, eating food is something that is done every day. There's bound to be some connection and identification with it. I believe it's worthwhile to look at Spanish food culture, as it has unique dishes and unique customs as well. Okay, so here are some of the questions I came up for this topic. What is Spain's relationship with food? How has Spanish food culture been influenced by other cultures or regions? How are mealtimes and customs different in Spain? And does food help you understand a culture better? Has it helped you understand and experience Spain's culture? So jumping into my first text of Food and Identity, I wanted to go over food cultural studies and its importance. My text describes it as not the study of food itself. It is an emerging interdisciplinary field of study that observes the intricate relationships among food, culture, and society from a number of disciplines in the humanities, social sciences, and sciences. It is a study of food and its relationship to the human experience. Food at some point stops being about survival. It turns into rituals and starts to have meaning. What you eat can help you understand yourself and others better, because there's meaning in traditional or typical meals someone has, even though it might not feel like that all the time. Something from this text that really stuck out was what one eats or chooses not to eat communicates aspects of one person's identity or emotion in a manner that words alone cannot. It's kind of corny, but it's like so much is said without saying anything. This text gave an example of the author being Italian and her time in Italy researching food and cultural studies. She began to notice that there were emotional connections, a sense of belonging, and ethnic pride found in the food on her plate. This seems to be a common experience. When researching what to do in different countries or looking at travel tips, blogs, food always comes up. There seems to be a must-try dish or an experience with food. It's a way to experience someone's culture. An example of that in Valencia and Spain in general is paella, although there are plenty of other examples. There were two other quotes that really solidified my understanding of food cultural studies and their importance. The first is, food choices expose a group or a person's beliefs, passions, background, knowledge, assumptions, and personalities. And the second one is, food choices tell stories of families, migrations, assimilation, resistance, changes over time, and a personal as well as group identity. And the last quote will lead me into my second text. The Trans-Hispanic Food Cultural Studies text was something we went over in class. It's actually what made me choose this topic. I feel like I could include 30 different quotes because it explains food cultural studies really well, specifically within Spain and Latin America. Similar to the first text, this one solidifies the way food helps mark identities and cultures, help people understand themselves and others. The text goes over how food cultural studies is kind of looked over when it comes to cultural studies from scholars of Iberia and Latin America. They mention their own surprise to this by saying, the peripheral status of the Spanish-speaking world within food studies is surprising given the centrality of the Colombian exchange to the evolution of European cuisines. What I want to bring attention to within this particular piece is the way food in Spain has evolved, and been influenced by other parts of the world. The authors of this piece chose the word trans-Hispanic as an alternative to Hispanic because it puts an emphasis on the connectedness of the Iberian and Latin American worlds and their diasporas. Another quote I want to bring attention to states, "To study the discourses of trans-Hispanic food is to acknowledge the colonial dynamic that forged these connections from histories of violence, genocide, and exploitation at the same time as it established pathways for the movement of cooking processes, food and agricultural technologies, ingredients, and taste." The food on people's plates in Spain and how they eat them is important, but the individual history of those ingredients and dishes also plays a role in the culture and how it's evolved. The last thing I want to mention about this piece is their comment on tourism and the promotion of restaurant eating. They say there's links between the development of tourism and the promotion of restaurant eating as a symbol and symptom of a strong Spanish nation. And that connects with my other two texts that focus on the social aspect of Spanish meals and cultures. My third text, Is It a Pleasure to Eat Together?, talks about the Mediterranean diet and the attachment it has to family and sociability, and the pleasure of eating, which is conviviality. I found it relevant as they also mentioned that the Mediterranean diet was recognized by UNESCO as an intangible cultural heritage of Spain. It's interesting how important and a big part of the Mediterranean diet is eating with others. So, not only can the food people are consuming be part of their culture and identity, but who they eat it with also matters. The text states that according to UNESCO, eating together is considered to be the foundation of cultural identity and continuity of communities throughout the Mediterranean basin, bringing together people of all ages and social classes. Okay, so getting to my last piece and the beginning of my analysis with eating out in Spain. This text was more of a study. They were trying to figure out when Spanish people went out to eat and if they would eat with others when they did go out to eat. They found that Spanish people go out to eat the most for lunch and dinner and more often on the weekends. They noted that meals have a remarkable sociable character in which eaters appear to avoid eating alone, and in their opinion, the only explanation for the high degree of sociability which impregnates this eating out conduct is the strong family links which exist in Spain and which lead to prioritizing social relationships rather than individualism at mealtimes, even when eating takes place outside of the home. One thing in particular I want to mention is tapas. They are smaller plates like appetizers that are meant to be shared with others. You're getting a taste of different things while socializing. It's a really popular thing in Spain that highlights the importance of eating together in Spain. Another example of this is the pitchers of sangria or the touristy agua de Valencia. Again, it emphasizes the importance of eating together and the social aspect of food. Along with sharing, you can take your time with meals. When eating out in Spain, you aren't rushed to eat or rushed to leave when you're done eating. It's completely normal to chit-chat for a while. If you walk around Benimaclet on the weekends, you will see the tables outside and inside of restaurants filled with people who are eating and many who are done eating and are just socializing and having a drink. Something to note with the eating out later than other cultures is the split workday. This is when businesses close down for a couple hours a day, which can be considered a siesta. The last text I talked about called it a timetable disruption. That is something unique to Spain and influences when people eat their meals. Connecting to the other readings in Spain's food, I want to bring attention to how Spain promotes food as a part of their culture. The purpose of this study abroad was to experience Spanish pop culture, and we were partnered with the local Spanish school, Hispania. A few of the activities to experience Spanish pop culture involved food. On the first day of orientation, we were handed a little ticket. It was for the cafe they had in the school so we could try Spanish breakfast. We could get a drink and a pastry from their cafeteria for free as a welcome. Aside from that, there was the sangria workshop and the agua de Valencia workshop. There was a ruta de tapas, a cata de vinos, an horchata and fartones tasting, and we had paella for lunch after a visit to La Albufera. An activity for La Feria de Abril consisted of traditional tapas and the kinds of foods we would find in the fair. So even an activity that wasn't for food brought some attention to it. Out of 16 activities, 5 had to do with food, and 3 others, it was included somehow. That shows how important food is in Spain and an important thing to try if you want to understand and immerse yourself into Spanish culture. Spain has many popular dishes, some of which have been on this presentation. There's a sense of it being special and unique because it's from Spain. For example, jamón ibérico. It goes through a specific process and is cut a certain way. It's special to Spain. The same can go for olive oil and wines produced here. I hope you're able to see the connection between food and identity in Spain's culture, not just from this presentation, but through your own experiences in Valencia as well. There's a lot we can learn from food and food practices that can help us better understand cultures, especially those rich in history like Spain. I made sense of a lot of these readings and experiences in general, comparing them to my own culture, so I suggest thinking about how you view your culture's food and if you identify with it. Lastly, I will leave you with 2 quotes from the food and identity piece, which are, "Humans, however, do not feed, they eat." And the second one is, "Humans relate to food in a way that is unique to mankind." Thank you.